Hello, fight fans, and welcome to another edition of Monday Night Fight Talk. I am your host, Dylan Brewski, and we're going to have a bit of a shorter show today as there's really nothing going on next weekend. There's no Bellator, there's no PFL, there's no UFC. So really all I'm going to do today is react to the UFC Fight Night that happened 2 nights ago, headlined by Holm and Ketlen Vieira. But we're going to start off with the first fight of the night, and that was Elise Reed versus Sam Page Hughes. I gotta say, I was really impressed with Sam Hughes in this fight. I know going into it, I thought Elise Reed was going to win this fight after the last performance that we saw from the both of them, where Sam Hughes did look good, but she was still on a 3-fight losing streak before that, where Elise Reed was a very good striker. But that didn't matter in this fight, really, because, yeah, she landed a high percentage of her strikes, but only 17 of her 70 strikes landed were a significant strike. So she was mostly just touching her for most of the fight, and then the second and third round, Sam Hughes just absolutely dominated, was able to get her to the ground, and by the time the third round even started, Elise Reed was completely done. She was completely exhausted, and she really stood no chance against the grappling of Sam Hughes. So huge props for Sam Hughes to come back. Like I said, off of a 3-fight losing streak, she was able to get together a 2-fight win streak now after Saturday. So huge props to her, and a great performance by her nonetheless. And then next up was Chase Hooper versus Felipe Colares. This was just a grappling masterclass on really both sides, but especially on the side of Chase Hooper. It really looked like he was almost toying with Felipe Colares, because half the time he would let Colares get to a position where he thought he could get out, and then Chase Hooper would just stop him. That's how much he was really like 2 or 3 steps ahead of Colares this entire fight. It was a absolutely almost perfect performance by Chase Hooper. He did get taken down a couple times. He did get reversed a few times, but he was able to stick back to the dominant position for most of the fight. And also, I mean, he's 22 years old. He's going to have some immaturity. He's going to make some mistakes, but it shows how bright of a future he has that he was able to correct those mistakes and even almost let Colares try to make him make a mistake and then to come back from it. So huge showing for Chase Hooper. He's also a local kid for anyone in the Pacific Northwest listening. He actually fights out of Enumclaw, which is only a half an hour away from where I stay. So that it's always awesome to see a local person doing well, and especially at his age. Next up was Jonathan Martinez versus Vince Morales. This was a pretty entertaining fight, but I wouldn't say it was necessarily close. But Vince Morales wasn't completely outmatched in this fight. At the end of the day, Jonathan Martinez was better on the ground. He was better on the feet. He was better just everywhere. But Vince Morales did still kind of stay in the fight. But at the end of the day, I mean, Martinez was just phenomenal in this fight. And I think that after this win, that's 3 wins in the last 8 months that he's pulled off. I think it's time to give him a ranked opponent in this division. I know the bantamweight division is stacked and deep beyond belief, but I wouldn't be totally opposed to giving this guy a shot, giving him a ranked opponent, and maybe possibly putting himself in the rankings, because it was an overall great performance by him. Next up was Omar Morales versus Euros Medic. Medic seemed to just pick his shots a little bit better. This wasn't that long of a fight. It was a first round finish, but towards the end of the this was a second round finish actually. But he just seemed like the flat out better fighter in this fight. in the end, he was able to land a big shot. He was able to get the TKO victory. I think a lot of us figured that he was going to come in and do what he did, especially coming off of his last fight. He did exactly what I kind of envisaged Medic would do. And then something that went completely away from what I thought was going to happen. Jailton Almeida absolutely destroyed Parker Porter. I underestimated Almeida to the fullest, and I will never do so again. Parker Porter didn't attempt a strike. He didn't attempt a takedown. He didn't get a submission attempt. He did nothing in this fight. That's how much Jailton Almeida dominated him. He was able to get the submission victory, but I mean, like I said, Parker Porter did nothing. He didn't even attempt anything. Zeros all across the board for Parker Porter. I thought he would have a better showing. I thought he would overpower Almeida, but man, Almeida's the real deal, and I know he only has 2 UFC fights under his belt, and this one was actually at heavyweight, where he's actually a natural light heavyweight. But to see him do that to someone that was 263 pounds, almost 30 pounds over what Jailton Almeida weighed in at, and he absolutely dominated him. So huge props to Jailton Almeida. I can't wait to see where his career goes because, like I said, he has an insanely bright future in the UFC. Next up was the premier prelim of the night, Joe Holmes versus Alan Amadovsky. This was another short, one-sided fight. My worries about Amadovsky's long layoff, I want to say it was like 28 months that he had not been in the octagon. They came true. He did not look the greatest in this fight. Joe Holmes kind of dominated. He outmatched, outclassed Alan Amadovsky. And then he gets put in a choke, and Amadovsky didn't even try to get out of it. He mostly just stayed there and waited till he needed to tap. It was a poor showing for Alan Amadovsky. It was a great showing for Joe Holmes, but pretty disappointed in the fact that he almost seemed to just give up, especially when we see later in the night. I'll get into it a little bit more, but Holly Holm able to get out of the choke that she was able to get out of. So, pretty poor showing, but nonetheless, congratulations to Joe Holmes for getting the victory. Next up was the first fight on the main card, Eric Anders versus Jun Young Park. This was an insanely close fight. At the end of the day, Park just seemed to be a little bit more active. And plus, he had phenomenal defense throughout this entire fight. Eric Anders, according to UFC.com, I don't know if those numbers are official yet, attempted 24 takedowns and landed 3 of them. That's unbelievable defense to be able to defend 21 takedowns in one fight out of 24. Unbelievable takedown defense. And also, Park landed more strikes at a higher rate than Eric Anders did. So, I mean, overall, great defensive showing by Jun Young Park, and also great offensive showing. He didn't look too bad with the striking either. I fully agree with the decision. I saw a few people thought that Eric Anders won the fight because of like control and the clinch and all that, but I agree with this decision that Jun Young Park did win this fight. The next fight I want to talk about is Polyana Viana versus Tabitha Ricci. Honestly, if you look at the striking numbers in this fight, you'd be quite shocked that not only Viana lost this fight, but she lost by unanimous decision. But at the end of the day, I think something that hurt her is she relied a little bit too much on her jiu-jitsu to where she was too comfortable on her back, because Tabitha Ricci got 5 takedowns in this fight, and Viana really had no desire to get back on her feet. So I think that really hurt her in the end, that she just let Ricci control her from the top position for a big majority of this fight, and ended up costing her in the end, because I think that either Viana could have at least gotten in a position to either reverse or get up on her feet again, but at the end of the day, she just didn't. So Tabitha Ricci got a big decision over someone that has almost double the experience that she had. So big win for Tabitha Ricci. She extends, I believe she lost her first UFC fight, but that was at a weight class above. That was against Fior, who is an absolute monster in the flyweight division right now. So big comeback win for Tabitha Ricci. Hopefully she can keep going with this streak and keep climbing the strawweight rankings. Next up was Chidi Njokuani versus Dusko Todorovic. Another fairly quick fight. But Todorovic actually, in the beginning of the fight, the very beginning, he looked decent. He was getting a couple takedowns. He was tagging Chidi a little bit, but at the end of the day, Chidi did get a performance of the night bonus with an absolutely devastating elbow to the temple, knocked him out cold. It was absolutely nasty coming out of the clinch, and he just clocked him with the elbow. Huge win for Chidi as he continues to become more and more popular in the UFC and climb the rankings of that weight class. And then we have the co-main event, aka the fight of the night, Santiago Ponzinibbio versus Michel Pereira. Now this was without a doubt the fight of the night. This was unbelievable. These two guys went to absolute war. They were within 5 strike attempts of each other. They were within 4 strikes landed of each other. Same with significant strikes. I mean, it was all across the board. These guys were neck and neck the entire fight. At the end of the day, I think the judges got it right by giving it to Pereira, but also I would have totally understood if they gave it to Ponzinibbio. This fight, like I said, was insanely close, especially if you look at the numbers. But this is a absolutely ginormous win for Michel Pereira. This is his 5th straight win. This is also a win against a ranked opponent. I fully expect him to be in the welterweight rankings after this fight. Ponzinibbio is probably going to drop out. The person at 15, I am blanking on who's at 15 right now, will move up to 14, and then I imagine Michel Pereira will probably be 15 after that showing against a ranked opponent, and like I said, his 5th straight win in the octagon. And that brings us to the main event. This was a great fight. It was close. It was back and forth the entire time. The only round that really seemed to be in question was round 3. Holly Holm obviously won the 1st and 5th rounds. Ketlen Vieira won rounds 2 and 4. Round 3 at first, when I first watched that fight, I thought Holly Holm got it. I thought she was clear the winner of that round. She controlled her against the fence for most of the fight, or for most of that round. But she didn't do much in that clinch. She just kind of pressed her up against the cage. Vieira actually landed more strikes in that round. She was more active in that round, trying to get out of that clinch position. So at the end of the day, I can't say I fully disagree with the judge's decision to give it to Ketlen Vieira when she was more active. Controlling someone on the fence doesn't always get you the flash in the eyes of the judges, doesn't always give you the win in the eyes of the judges. As Dana White always says, don't leave it in the hands of the judges. So, I mean, at the end of the day, after rewatching it, I actually think I'm with the judges on this one, or at least 2 of the judges, that Ketlen Vieira won this fight. And at least, like I said, 2 of the judges agree with me, so she was able to get a huge win. I mean, I can't even say how big of a win this is for Ketlen Vieira. This is her 2nd straight win over a former bantamweight champion. This is, I mean, that was against the number 2 bantamweight in the entire world. So, I mean, you got to think she has to be next in line for the winner of Amanda Nunes and Juliana Pena that just got released for UFC 277. July 30th, that fight will take place. I think after that performance against a former champion, her second straight, like I said, against a former champion, you got to give her that title shot. Unless Amanda Nunes gets the title back and it's a really close fight, you want to do the trilogy with Juliana Pena, then okay, maybe Vieira has to win one more. But I wouldn't totally be opposed to a Ketlen Vieira versus the winner of Amanda Nunes and Juliana Pena after July 30th. But that is all I have for you this week. Like I said, it's going to be a shortened show this week. It will be a shortened show next week as, again, we don't have any UFC. We have no Bellator. We have no PFL. So next week I will just be giving my fight night predictions for I believe the Saturday, June 4th, Alexander Volkov, Jairzinho Rozenstruik will be headlining that one. But until then, thank you all so much for listening. You can find me on Instagram at Monday Night Fight Talk. You can find me on Twitter at MN Fight Talk. Both links will be in the description. If you want to hear my general sports opinions, general sports topics, you can find me Tuesdays at 3:30 p.m. Pacific. On SquaboSays YouTube channel. I will also put his link in the description. But again, thank you all so much for listening, and I will see you all next week, Monday, 5 p.m. Pacific, same time, same place on YouTube. Thank you.